Fellow lads, it's been a while since we've presented one of our opinions as abject fact to you guys, so we're back to do that today. And we're talking about who is the greatest Flash.
We have a certain trigger quota to reach on this channel every month with you guys.
Yeah.
So, of course, this is going to be our own biased review.
Yes.
Take it as you will. This is not the word of law.
Or is it?
Let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Thomas.
I'm Merlin.
Together we're the Comic Lads, and today we are going to find out who is the greatest Flash in the DC universe.
And of course, like many superheroes out there and their different variants and personas, we all have our favorites.
Yep.
So we want to hear from you in question of the week. Who is your favorite Flash? I mean, honestly, the Flash family is getting to a point where it almost like rivals the Bat family in the amount of people that are in it.
It might be bigger.
Yeah.
Because if you include like Jesse Quick and then Max Mercury,
the Flash iceberg is insane.
It's massive, guys. Little disclaimer too, we're not going to get to every single member of the Flash family. We're going to be looking at strictly the ones that hold the moniker The Flash.
And guys, don't forget to hit the like button.
Zoom to the like button.
And also consider subscribing, because me and you are not comic lads.
We're comic lads. Before we get into it, there are a couple characters that we gotta address. That being Bart Allen and Wallace West. We couldn't get into the main list of Flashes before talking about Wallace West. He was the Wally that was introduced, or kind of reintroduced, I guess you could say, as part of the New 52. He was basically DC's new take on Wally West, but unfortunately, 90s fans just couldn't handle it, and they were like, no, we need the Ginger Wally back! So they brought classic Wally back, but they weren't gonna get rid of Wallace, because he became a character in his own right. You know, he had to go through trials and tribulations of his own. His uncle was the Reverse Flash of the New 52 era, which I always really liked. I thought that costume was so dope. And where I really grew to love Wallace as a character was during the DC Rebirth Teen Titans run, where it was Damian's first outing as the leader of the Teen Titans, and Wallace was the Kid Flash on that squad. And it was a really good time.
To kick things off, we gotta talk about Bart Allen. Bart Allen is a character who has held the mantle of Flash, but I feel like he's more easily recognized by his career as the Kid Flash or Impulse.
I really like Impulse just as like a code name. It's so cool.
It is cool. I like his costume too, with the kind of like Invincible-esque goggles.
Yeah, and the white and kind of like blood red lightning bolt down the chest.
Yeah.
I like it.
And Impulse, you know, even though he's not really high up on our ranking, I think just the premise and backstory behind his character is very interesting. If you guys didn't know, he is from the future. He is Barry Allen's grandson, set back to the past or present. You get to see how he acts as a future kid in the 21st century present.
Yeah, I've always really liked Impulse. My first introduction to him was Young Justice, and that's still kind of my favorite version of him. I felt like they depicted his origins so well. And I really like that he was such a great idea, because he's a smart way to get like young readers familiar with the old Flashes, because like Max Mercury and characters like Jay Garrick as well become his mentors, and it's a good way to, you know, showcase the new while also homaging what came before.
Yeah, and because he's from the future, he always gets to drop little hints that he knows more about what's coming on.
Yeah.
Than he lets up.
Yeah, he'll mention like his parents that like are Barry's kids that he hasn't had yet, and you're like, oh Jesus, dude, stop. The timeline's gonna rupture.
Yeah, literally, with like the butterfly effect and all that. On a more personal note, I've been reading the Jeff Johns Teen Titans run, to mixed feelings, but overall very positive. And Bart Allen is an absolute highlight in this book.
Yeah, he's Kid Flash in the run you're reading, no?
Yes, because at the start of the book, Wally is the main Flash at this point, and he kind of looks down a bit on Impulse as being a bit too impulsive, funny enough, and being a bit too, you know, scatterbrained and not really having a care in the world.
Okay.
And to prove to Wally that he wants to live up to the Flash moniker, he adopts the Kid Flash persona.
I also really like how in certain alternate futures, we see that Bart, we see that Bart actually becomes the Flash.
Yeah, with his yellow costume.
Yeah, and the Titans Tomorrow arc where Tim's Batman.
Yeah, and he just kills people.
I hate that.
I hate that, but I do like that of the Justice League that is the previous Teen Titans of that era.
Yeah.
Bart Allen is actually the only sane one, and he's working secretly against them.
It does set me off, though, that his Flash suit is just a yellow Flash suit. It's like, why would you choose that?
Yeah, I like it personally. I think it's a really cool design.
But like with like your memories, you know, like Reverse Flash, you're wearing his costume and he's like vibrated his hands into like Iris's skull in the past. I'm like, what, bro? Maybe change it to red.
Yeah, agreed. But Bart Allen, hopefully we can see more of him in comics and maybe even the DCU.
Well, it seems like the place that we're going to be landing in most of the DCU projects coming out is going to be like right in the in the thick of it. Like right in the middle of the timeline, you know, where a lot of past characters have been established. Like, bro, based on what we're getting with Hal Jordan, Barry might be fucking dead already, like when we get into the DCU.
Yeah, who even knows at this point?
Which maybe is for the best, given...
Another really cool thing with Bart Allen that I didn't know about until just recently is he has a special power that none of the other Flashes have, called fast learning.
Okay.
Or essentially, you know, as Flashes, you would think that they are active at super speed, meaning they can read at super speed, meaning they can just be a bank of infinite knowledge.
But they forget about it pretty quickly after, no?
Exactly. But Impulse, Bart Allen, has permanent fast learning. So he can, like, at one point in this Teen Titans run, you know, he's getting kind of talked down to by Wally and told that he's being a bit too, like... Impulsive.
I think there's someone hanging right there.
To prove to him that he's more than he thinks he is, he goes into a library and reads the entire library from start to finish and just absorbs all that information.
Yeah, he's like young Sheldon.
Exactly, to problem solve. So it's not like a big thing, but I think it's a very unique part of his character.
It's super fun.
But getting into the main list, we have 3 prominent Flashes to talk about. We might get crucified for putting this guy before, like, Bart. I don't know.
Listen, guys, we're talking about Jay Garrick.
Jay Garrick, he is the first Flash.
The original Flash, one of the first superheroes in DC Comics, all the way back from Flash Comics #1 in, you know, 19-aught, whatever.
Yeah, almost 100 years ago now, too, which is kind of nuts.
That's so whack.
Right?
That's so whack, dude.
Yeah, and he was the original Flash on the Justice Society, right?
Absolutely.
I like Jay Garrick because even though in comics, like, no one freaking ages, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He is kind of like the grandpa of the Flash family.
Yeah, he's the elder statesman of the Flash family. I feel like he's a great comfort character.
Yeah, well, even going back to what we were saying before, you know, when Bart comes back from the future, Jay Garrick is a really good mentor and kind of anchor for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he provides him this family life that he's missing in the present without his, you know, current family. And especially, once again, referencing the Teen Titans run, I don't know how it is in other ones, but in that one specifically, he's able to ground him in a lot of aspects and keep him focused on what's important and helping out, you know, the little guy.
I agree. And I feel like that's where Jay Garrick works best in comics now, the same way that Alan Scott does in the Green Lantern mythos. I love that they're kind of a safety net for our younger heroes to fall back on, you know, when they don't know what to do, when they have dilemmas or tough decisions to make. I love that they have Jay there.
Yeah.
And, you know, even going further back than Bart, I'm pretty sure when Wally was trying to get his druthers as the new Flash back in the 90s, Jay was there as one of his mentors as well.
Yeah, and like a lot of people might say, like, how can he be third? Like, he's so slow. You know what I'm saying?
He is, like, listen, when Jay is with all his boys and, like, the other Flashes, he can access the Speed Force and run, like, as fast as them, quote unquote, or whatever. But when he doesn't, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I'm pretty sure Jay can't just access the Speed Force himself, which really limits his powers.
It's just geezer Flash. Not the same, not the same.
It does limit him, but with everything that we've been saying, I think we feel like his character and personality more than makes up for his lack of, like, being able to run it.
Impossible.
You know, exactly.
Yeah.
Which, does that really affect the storytelling at the end of the day? Not really.
So I haven't been completely caught up with Flash comics for just the last few years now, but when I was doing research for this video, and I say research very lightly, Jay has a daughter who is a speedster now too, and her name is the Boom, which I'm
come on.
I'm sorry, like, I'm all for the Flash family getting bigger because, like, that's what it's about and that's what Flash fans like.
Right.
But, like, we could have thought of a better name than the Boom.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like a We bring the boom! That's what we do. Yeah, this character's name gets 5 dooms from us.
Guys, next up on the list, this is like a very tough debate. Like, the two characters are kind of like neck and neck.
They are really neck and neck, using a racing term.
How many have we made so far?
But yeah, guys, like, listen, don't crucify us. Next up is Barry Allen.
Barry Allen is, like, there's no question about it, he is the most known Flash.
I think so, yeah. Oh, especially from the TV show now.
Yeah, and he's appeared in, all the movies. Well, he's appeared in the DCEU movies. But for people that grew up watching the Justice League cartoon, it wasn't actually him, right?
Nope, it was Wally.
Which, like, caught me off guard when I grew up. Like, I never really put 2 and 2 together, because you so rarely see him without his mask, maybe in, like, 1 or 2 scenes.
Yeah, and he's, when he is unmasked, obviously he's Wally and he's Ginger. But they did a weird thing, like they always do, where they gave him Barry's day job. Like, in one episode where we see Wally's daily life when he's not the Flash, he's a crime scene investigator. I'm like, that's not fucking Wally.
Yeah.
Come on.
And speaking of, I actually really do like that Barry has roots in the kind of crime investigation way of storytelling.
Yeah.
Because it's such, like, an easy in for him to, like, be put in these stupid scenarios.
Right,
You know what I mean?
yeah. And it ties into his origin very well, which I think he does have the best origin out of all the Flashes. I feel like we all know it at this point. Young Barry Allen running home from school, excited to see his mom. I think in some continuities it's on her birthday.
Oh, geez.
Like in the Flashpoint Paradox movie, which is elite, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, my God. We got to do a video on that.
100%. And he gets home, and his mom's murdered, and his dad's framed for it, and it was fucking Reverse Flash.
Yeah, and it gives him a really good arc in the beginning years of his career as Flash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he's always trying to prove his dad's innocence and figure out what happened.
Yeah, and I've always found, like, a really strong connection to that. And it's so hard to watch him keep failing and keep trying to prove his dad's innocence, but it never quite takes.
I mean, in terms of, like, raw power, obviously he's faster than Jay Garrick.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Barry Allen, some of his most famous storylines are him running so fast that he breaks a literal time barrier.
Yes. And Barry is the quintessential, like, classic Flash. He launched the Silver Age back in 1959. He has all the best villains, in my opinion. Eobard Thawne is a Barry villain. The Rogues are Barry villains, in my opinion. So is Grodd.
Yeah, and there is something very unique about Barry where, as you may know if you've read Blackest Night, he gets a blue ring.
Yes.
In that storyline.
Yes.
To really show that he's the embodiment of hope. There's something unique with him where he has a certain charisma.
Yeah.
And hope. Well, like, there's just this,
Undying hope inside him.
which I think makes him very unique and is what makes the very, like, last 2 spots on this list extremely hard to rank,
Yeah.
especially for me. You know what I'm saying? Because I love that quality about him, and it's something that's so rarely seen in superhero storytelling.
I very much agree. I feel as though Barry is the most complete superhero on this list. Because Barry Allen, when he's depicted the right way, he has it all figured out. He's always there in the nick of time to help his friends. And, he also, like, he just has all the accolades, like he's sacrificed himself in Crisis. Crazy moment.
And when he sacrifices himself, funny enough, that leads to our first spot ranking. We're talking about Wally West.
Guys, Wally's the best Flash.
I mean, Wally, when Barry Allen sacrifices himself, he does take up the mantle and evolves from his Kid Flash persona into the mainline Flash. And even though Barry had so many years before him to build up his legacy, the few years that we've had with Wally as the main Flash have just been absolutely something so special.
100%. And, don't get it twisted. Like, we had Barry for 25 some odd years, but then we had Wally for, like, well over a decade. Almost 2 as the main Flash. And he solidified himself amongst fans as the greatest hero to wear the mantle of the Flash.
Yeah, and he's ginger.
So that's like another 15 points.
Absolutely.
We're not really power scaling on this list, but the fact that Wally is the fastest Flash gives him crazy aura points.
100%, for sure.
I was reading just like some quick feats that he's done as the Flash before, and like I read that he evacuated an entire city in like under a millisecond.
How does everyone... How did he not just like blow up moving at that speed?
They have to all be meat.
Yeah.
But one thing that I have actually, I'm pretty sure I've read somewhere, is that when the Flashes are using their speed and they're touching you, their Speed Force protection when they're running transfers to you as well. That's why, like, Iris hasn't exploded a billion times, you know?
Right.
Going back to what I was saying before about Barry, Barry was already an established superhero, like, right when we see him from the jump. He knows what he's doing. He basically gets his sidekick, Kid Flash, like, right when we jump into his stories. But with Wally, we got to see his entire growth throughout the DC Universe's history. And there's something special and something to be said about that, where we got to witness a full hero's journey with Wally.
Yeah.
And, you know, not just in the Flash books, but in seminal books like Grant Morrison's JLA, we get to see him alongside Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, as kind of the youngsters of the league, kind of like the young upstarts, and you kind of felt like you were on a ride along with him, you know? He felt like a great perspective character amongst all these, like, godly heroes that are just looking down on him.
Yeah, and building off of that, he's one of the very few characters in comics that has been allowed to have continuous permanent growth.
Yes, they actually let him have kids.
I know.
And have a wife, Linda.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
It's crazy because you see him from the ages of like 15 all the way until now and seeing his progression. It's something extremely special, not just with the Flashes, but just superhero storytelling in general.
I agree. One last thing we gotta mention is, like, we've pretty much been talking exclusively about comics, but Wally in the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoons, man, so goated.
Yeah.
I'm thinking specifically, you know exactly what I'm thinking of.
Oh, I know.
When Wally absolutely obliterates Lex and Brainiac, when he runs around the world like a million times.
Yeah, and he's like vibrating from all like the Speed Force energy and kinetic energy stored in him.
That scene is so fucking peak.
It's all been downhill since then.
But all that's to say, guys, our favorite Flash is Wally West. Let us know who yours is in the comments down below. The thing about the Flashes is that they're all special, and they're all wonderful separate pieces of the same puzzle. Things like the Bat Family, you can get kind of tired of how many new additions they add to it, because it's like, you kind of want Batman to be a loner. But with the Flash, family is one of the core themes and principles of that entire side of the DC universe, so the more the merrier.
Yeah, but let's slow down a little bit.
Maybe a little, maybe a little bit.
Guys, if you enjoyed the video, give it 5 big booms. Hit the like button, and we love you.
We love you very much.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.